Hello, so is it too late to overcome your fear of driving? People often ask me this and say, look, I've had this problem for 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. I think the longest was over 40 years somebody had driving anxiety for. And I say, look, am I too far gone? Am I past it? Am I beyond help? Well, the simple answer to that is no, and I'll explain why in this video. It doesn't matter how long you've had a fear of driving for several reasons. Now, one of them is that in many instances, the only reason you've had the fear for so long is because you haven't done the right things to remove it. So many times people say they've been down the medical routes, they've been to see doctors and nurses and they've had scans and whatever, and that didn't show anything up. And they've been for things like meditation, and they've done breathing exercises, and they've done exposure therapy. Well, none of those things will fix it. That's why it hasn't worked. And I know about this because I've had problems in my life that I've had for decades. I've had certain problems for over 30 years, and I fixed them simply because I did the correct thing. So you see, if you're doing the wrong thing, well, that's one of the reasons why you've had it for so long, because you simply haven't been doing the correct thing to fix it. The other thing you need to understand is that, as I've mentioned in my other 300 plus videos on the fear of driving, your mind has no concept of time. So it doesn't matter if you've had it for 5 years, 10 years, 30 years or more, because there is no time in your mind. And you see, what the problem really is an old feeling, memory, emotion, whatever you want to call it. It's an old thing from your past, which is still activating when you drive. So the driving triggers off the old problem. So your mind doesn't know if it's 2025 or 1985. It doesn't know. Your mind has no concept of time. This is why when you listen to music, it can take you back. Oh, I remember this song. And you have all these memories come up from years ago, because there is no time. So you see, when you're saying, am I too far gone? Well, no, because there is no such thing as time with problems. So it doesn't matter if it was 40 years ago or more. That's now, because in your mind, there is only now. And this is one thing we do. I'll let you in on a bit of a trade secret, as you were, for therapy. When you do therapy to overcome a fear of driving, you sometimes have to do what we call a regression. So a regression is when you go back in time in your mind, well, even though it has no concept of time, and you go back to a time in your life when this problem began. And one of the things you have to do to make that successful is you have to live it as though it's happening now. So it's no good saying, well, I remember when I was 5 and I remember this and I remember that, because you're remembering. Your mind doesn't remember like that. If you change the way you say it, so it's in the current tense, not the past tense. So instead of saying, I remember this and I remember that, say it as though it's happening now. Now, this can sound a bit odd if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, but you're sitting there and you're going to say out loud, because it works better out loud, I am 5 years old. It's a bit funny to say, I am 5 years old, and I am in school, and the teacher is picking on me, and the other kids are laughing at me. Now, the thing is, why you do that is because it makes it more powerful. Because again, your mind has no concept of time. So by saying it in the present, it's reinforcing that, and your mind genuinely believes that those things are happening now. And that's why it's more powerful, because you relive the emotions from that time. And people are often quite surprised when they start crying when they do this, and they say, I haven't cried for years, what's going on? It's quite strange that, because as a therapist I see people crying every day, and I cry a lot because things come up for me. And it's quite strange how many people, I used to be one of these, they haven't cried for years. Well, no wonder you've got problems, because all these old things are trapped in your head, but you haven't cried for years, you haven't released them. And when you release them, then you can go out and drive. And the thing is, even though you may still be thinking of them subconsciously, they won't affect you. And the point is, you won't know about this stuff, because people say, well, I don't know what it is. Well, of course you don't. That's the whole point of therapy. And they say, but I don't know what it is. No, that's why I do therapy. But I don't know what it is. And they go around in circles for ages. The whole point of therapy is to find out what this thing or things is or are. So you won't know what it is. You'll have no idea. You will be oblivious to your problem. You will have absolutely no idea what's causing this fear of driving. But sometimes you do. Sometimes people say, well, I know what it is because this thing happened in my life and I've never dealt with it. A very common one is people say, someone died years ago, and I always felt like I got over it too well, like I didn't cry. And, I remember the police knocking at my door and telling me, and I just kind of said, oh, okay, that's a shame. And I carried on. Well, that's what the problem is, because you never processed it at the time. That's why people go to funerals, to process the grief. And if you don't do that, then it builds and builds and builds. And I'm not saying it's just that. That's just one of millions of things it can be. But it builds and builds and builds and builds until you can no longer drive. And this is what animals don't do. Because if you don't know about this, this is still relevant if you wonder what animals have to do with anything. When animals are in the wild and they encounter a near-death experience, let's say, I don't know if this even happens, but let's say a raccoon is almost eaten by a lion. Raccoons probably don't even live where lions do, but yeah. Let's just say a poor little raccoon is nearly eaten by a lion somehow. They will run off and they'll shake and they'll violently shake their body, shake the tail, and then they'll run off and they've released the problem, they've released the stress, they've shook it all off. But as human beings, we don't do that. We tend to carry baggage and luggage, and we package all our emotions and problems into cases, and we carry with them for our lives. And that's why people have so many problems, because they're carrying old stuff. So a lot of therapy work is just about letting it go. And if you don't want to do therapy, fine, it's not for everyone. You can do it on your own, but it's much more difficult. In the same way, you can change the brakes on your car if you really want to. But I'd rather get a professional to do that for me, because they know what they're doing and I don't. So check out these other videos of mine on the screen. And if you do want to work with me one-to-one online from anywhere in the world, you can contact me through my website, firstdrive.com. Thanks for watching. And as always, I'll see you again soon for more videos.